The galaxy was a vast and mysterious place, filled with countless worlds, strange species, and incredible wonders. But today, something unlike anything anyone had ever seen was about to unfold. The Galactic Federation, the supreme authority that ruled over all the stars and planets, made an announcement that sent shockwaves across every corner of the galaxy. It was an announcement that would change the fate of many and bring together beings from different corners of space for a competition like no other. It all started with a broadcast. The sound of the Galactic Federation's official logo echoed through every communication device, holoscreens, datapads, and speakers across countless worlds. The people of the galaxy stopped what they were doing, instantly drawn to the message that filled the airwaves. This was something they had been waiting for, something that promised to be exciting and mysterious. The voice that spoke was calm and authoritative, a voice that belonged to the Federation's leader, a being who commanded respect across the galaxy. Attention, all inhabitants of the galaxy, the voice boomed, a new contest is about to begin. A contest like no other. This is your chance to witness the most beautiful female in the entire galaxy. A beauty contest to end all beauty contests. The words echoed through the air, sending ripples of excitement and curiosity. A beauty contest. It sounded simple at first, but as the message continued, it became clear that this was no ordinary event. We are inviting contestants from every known species, from every corner of the universe, to compete for the title of the most beautiful female in the galaxy. But be warned, this competition will test more than just beauty. It will test strength, intelligence, and heart. The words hung in the air, stirring excitement, anticipation, and confusion among the people of the galaxy. How could something so simple, beauty, turn into something so complex? The message continued, outlining the rules of the contest. The winner of this contest will gain not just a title, but unimaginable power. She will hold the key to shaping the future of the galaxy. The Federation will grant her the ability to lead, to make decisions that could affect the fate of every world. A hush fell over the galaxy, the power to shape the future. The contest had just gone from a simple beauty pageant to something far more dangerous. The Federation's announcement made it clear. The stakes were high. This was not just about being pretty, it was about power. It was about control, the power to lead and influence the galaxy itself. The message went on to explain that each contestant would represent a different planet or species. It was a competition that would bring together the most diverse group of women the galaxy had ever seen. From the warrior queens of the fiercest planets to the serene princesses of the most peaceful worlds, each would have a chance to prove who was truly the most powerful, the most beautiful, and the most capable of leading the galaxy. Contestants, your time has come. The eyes of the galaxy will be on you. The leader's voice continued. Prepare yourselves for the greatest challenge of your lives. Only one will be crowned the most beautiful, and only one will have the power to shape the future of all. The announcement ended, and the broadcast faded into silence, but the effects were immediate. Across the galaxy, whispers spread like wildfire. Some viewed it as a mere spectacle, a chance to watch stunning women compete for glory. Others saw it as something far more sinister. The question on everyone's mind was, what was the Federation really after? Was this just a contest of beauty, or was there something more? Why would the Federation give such incredible power to the winner? These questions raced through the minds of beings across planets and galaxies. Was it about choosing the strongest woman, or was it about testing loyalty and control? What would the Federation do with this power once it was in the hands of the winner? Was there something hidden beneath the surface of this contest that no one yet understood? The excitement was palpable, but so was the fear. On the distant planet of Zarn, a group of powerful leaders gathered in secret. They were worried. The Federation had always been powerful, but now they were offering power to one individual, a woman who would be able to lead entire worlds. What if the winner of this contest wasn't someone they could control? What if the winner would be a force too strong for anyone to challenge? Meanwhile, on the planet of Lothar, a young woman named Lyra sat in a small room, watching the broadcast. Her bright, green eyes were filled with determination. She wasn't just another pretty face. Lyra had trained her entire life for a moment like this. not knowing exactly what the contest would bring, but knowing it would be her chance to prove herself, to show the galaxy that there was more to her than just her looks. Lyra was part of a warrior race, one known for its strength and cunning. She was smart, capable, and determined. And, although the Federation had made it clear that this contest would be about more than beauty, she knew that her physical appearance would still play a role. As her homeworld's representative, Lyra would have to use every skill she had, not just to win the contest, but to protect her people's future. But she wasn't the only one. As news of the contest spread, so did rumors of the other contestants. The Federation was inviting beings from every corner of the universe. Some were said to be beautiful, but deadly. Some were said to be clever, yet ruthless. Some were mysterious, with unknown agendas. No one knew who would emerge victorious. But one thing was certain: the competition would be fierce. The stage was set. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the contest to begin. But little did they know, this was only the beginning. As the contestants began preparing, each one secretly wondered, what would it really take to win? What would they have to sacrifice? In the end, and most importantly, who would walk away with the power to change everything? The excitement was palpable, and the whole galaxy buzzed with anticipation. As the final echoes of the Federation's announcement faded, every species, from the most advanced civilizations to the most ancient ones, began to prepare for the upcoming beauty contest. It wasn't just a contest of beauty, it was a battle of intellect, power, and strength. Women from across the universe were called upon to step into the spotlight, each representing her world, her people, and her culture. The stakes had never been higher, and everyone had something to prove. As the contestants gathered from their respective planets, they came from every corner of the known galaxy. The Federation had made sure to select representatives from all walks of life. Some came from worlds of elegance and peace, where beauty was celebrated above all else. Others hailed from war-torn planets, where survival depended on strength and cunning. And then, there were those from the uncharted territories, mysterious and unknown, their very existence only whispered about among the stars. Among the many women who would compete, there was one whose name was whispered in every corner of the galaxy: Lyra. She was the chosen representative from the planet Lothar, a world known for its fierce warriors and advanced military technologies. Lyra wasn't just another contestant. She wasn't the kind of woman who relied solely on her beauty. No, Lyra's strength, intelligence, and unmatched skill in combat made her a force to be reckoned with. Her green eyes gleamed with determination as she prepared for the contest. She wasn't just participating to win the title, she was here to make a statement. For years, her people had been oppressed by the Federation, forced into submission and treated as nothing more than pawns in a vast political game. Lyra knew that this was her chance to change everything. If she won, she would gain more than just the title of the most beautiful woman in the galaxy. She would gain the power to bring true change to her world. As Lyra arrived at the venue for the contest, she couldn't help but feel the weight of what was at stake. The building was massive, made of sleek, silver-like materials that shimmered in the light of distant stars. Inside, it was even more breathtaking. The space was filled with futuristic designs. Neon lights danced across the floor, and large holograms projected images of distant galaxies and unknown realms. The air hummed with the energy of 1,000 species, all gathered for the same purpose: to be crowned the most beautiful, the most powerful, the most capable. Lyra wasn't the only one who had arrived with determination. The other contestants, each more unique and captivating than the next, were just as prepared to win. There was Kaya, the alien princess from the peaceful world of Ishtar. Her flowing silver hair and radiant skin made her the picture of elegance, and she carried herself with a grace that captivated everyone she met. But beneath her beauty, Kaya was no stranger to the challenges of leadership. Her world had once been invaded by hostile forces, and she had fought fiercely to protect her people. Now, she was here to prove that her beauty was not just skin deep. Then there was Zara, the fierce warrior from the desert planet of Charybdis. She was built like a tank, muscular, tall, and intimidating. Her dark, scarred skin told the story of a life spent in battle. Her eyes burned with the fire of someone who had fought for survival in a brutal world. But despite her tough exterior, there was an undeniable charm about her. She had a quiet confidence that came from knowing her worth and the strength she carried within. And there was Vera, the mysterious alien from the uncharted world of Deadliest. No one knew much about her race, but rumors had it that she was the last of her kind, a species that had mastered the art of telepathy. Her hauntingly beautiful appearance and the strange, luminous aura that surrounded her made her an enigma. Yet, it was her ability to influence others with a single glance that set her apart from the rest. Her eyes seemed to pierce through to the very soul of anyone who met them, and that power made her both an asset and a threat. As the contestants were introduced, the tension in the room grew thicker. The audience, a mix of beings from all over the galaxy, watched with wide eyes, eager to see who would emerge as the victor. The beauty contest was about to begin, but the undercurrent of danger was undeniable. Everyone knew that there was more to this competition than just glamour and grace. This was a test of survival, a test to see who could wield beauty, intelligence, and power to their advantage. Lyra kept her eyes focused. She studied the other contestants carefully, noting their strengths and weaknesses. She wasn't interested in competing for the title of the most beautiful in the traditional sense. She knew that to win this contest, she would have to outsmart them all. Beauty was just the surface. What mattered most was the strategy, the alliances, and the ability to play the game. The Federation's rules were simple. The contestants would face a series of challenges, each designed to test a different aspect of their abilities. Some would be physical, testing their strength and endurance. Others would be mental, challenging their intellect and decision-making skills. And some would be psychological, pushing their limits and forcing them to face their deepest fears and desires. As the first challenge was announced, the room fell silent. Lyra's heart raced as she stepped forward, preparing herself for what was to come. The first test was a battle of wits. Each contestant was given a series of complex puzzles and riddles, designed to test their problem-solving skills. The pressure was intense. Every contestant needed to be at their best to succeed. Lyra's eyes narrowed as she focused on the puzzle in front of her. She wasn't just solving riddles, she was laying the groundwork for her next move. She knew that the real contest hadn't even begun yet. Behind the smiles, the grace, and the beauty, there were women who would stop at nothing to win. This was her chance to prove that she was more than just a beautiful face. And as the first round came to an end, Lyra couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. She had outsmarted the others, securing her place at the top. But the game had only just begun. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined, and the galaxy would soon know that the battle for power, beauty, and control was far from over. The room was silent, save for the hum of the distant machinery and the sound of heavy breathing. The atmosphere was thick with tension as the contestants stood before the judges, ready for the first real test of their abilities. This was no ordinary beauty contest. This was a battle of wills, strength, and intelligence. The Federation had promised that the challenges would push the contestants to their limits, and the first round was about to begin. Lyra stood at the front of the group, her green eyes locked onto the task ahead. She had trained for moments like this, moments where strategy would matter more than raw strength or beauty. In this competition, the true test was not just in how one looked, but in how one could think, adapt, and outwit the others. Beauty might win the eyes of the galaxy, but intelligence and power would win the contest. The judges, an eclectic mix of beings from different planets and species, were seated in their high, transparent booths, watching closely. They were not just looking for a beautiful face. They were looking for someone who could command the galaxy, who could lead, who could think beyond the surface. The challenge was announced, a battle of minds. Each contestant was given a holographic interface, displaying a series of complex riddles, puzzles, and strategic games. Some of the challenges involved cracking codes. Others required critical thinking and problem-solving under pressure. The rules were simple. The first to complete the challenges correctly would win. But the contestants could not interfere with one another's work. It was a game of pure intellect. Lyra's fingers hovered over the screen, her mind already in full gear. She wasn't here to play games. She was here to win. She had grown up in a world where every decision mattered, where every step was calculated. Lothar, her home planet, was a place of warriors, but it was also a place where knowledge and strategy had saved her people time and time again. While the other contestants might rely on their beauty or physical prowess, Lyra knew that her true strength lay in her ability to think faster, more clearly than anyone else. The first puzzle appeared on her screen, a complex series of numbers and symbols. Lyra studied it, her mind quickly unraveling the patterns hidden beneath the surface. She wasn't just solving the puzzle, she was understanding the logic behind it. Each riddle was a test, not just of knowledge, but of patience and focus. Lyra was in her element. While others struggled with the first challenge, Lyra's hands moved quickly, solving the puzzle with ease. But this was just the beginning. She knew the Federation would not make it easy. The next challenge came, a test of leadership. The contestants were asked to create a strategy for a hypothetical situation. A rebellion had broken out on a distant planet, and they had to organize and lead a team to suppress it. The judges would grade them not just on the plans they created, but on how well they communicated their vision, how they worked with others, and how they handled pressure. Lyra didn't hesitate. She began to speak, outlining her plan with precision and confidence. She spoke of strategy, of knowing your enemy, of knowing when to fight and when to negotiate. She was a born leader, and it showed in her every word, her every gesture. The other contestants looked at her in awe, some with envy, others with growing concern. They realized they were not just competing against a beautiful woman. Lyra was a force to be reckoned with. Across the room, Zara, the warrior from Charybdis, frowned. She had been confident in her physical strength, but the mental challenges were a different game altogether. She wasn't used to thinking this much, and it was showing. She struggled with the leadership test, finding herself second-guessing her strategies. She was a fighter, a soldier, not a tactician. Her pride was beginning to bruise, and she knew that if she didn't step up, she would lose her edge. Meanwhile, Vera, the mysterious alien from Deadliest, remained eerily calm. Her telepathic abilities gave her a unique advantage, allowing her to tap into the thoughts and emotions of the other contestants. She could sense their doubts, their weaknesses, and their fears. She didn't need to see the puzzles on the screen to know how others were faring. She could feel it in their minds. But she wasn't using this power to help herself, no. She was using it to manipulate the others. She knew exactly when to act, when to hold back, and when to strike. Her silence was her weapon. As the contest wore on, it became clear that Lyra was not just a contestant, she was a threat. The judges watched with growing interest. Impressed by her intellect and strategy, she moved through the challenges with ease, never rushing, always thinking 2 steps ahead. Her calm demeanor only made her more dangerous. She wasn't the type to boast or show off. Her quiet confidence made her even more formidable. The tension in the room grew as the final round of the first challenge was announced. The contestants would face a live simulation, a galaxy-wide crisis, where they would have to make quick decisions to save entire civilizations from destruction. The simulation was designed to test their leadership, decision-making, and adaptability. They would have to lead their teams, make tough choices, and prioritize actions in the face of overwhelming odds. Lyra's heart raced as the simulation began. She quickly assessed the situation, noting the key points of weakness in the system. She spoke with authority, guiding her team through the chaotic scenario. While the others hesitated, unsure of what to do next, Lyra was already moving, already thinking. Her plan was clear, her direction unwavering. As the simulation played out, the other contestants struggled to keep up with the pace. But Lyra remained composed, always in control. When the simulation ended, the room fell silent. The judges were impressed, but there was more than just admiration. In their eyes, they had seen something rare in Lyra, a woman who was not only beautiful but brilliant. A woman who could lead and think with equal skill. Zara, still shaken by her own failure in the leadership round, cast a resentful glance at Lyra. This contest was supposed to be about beauty, about showing who was the most stunning woman in the galaxy. But Lyra had turned it into something far more dangerous. She wasn't just competing for a crown, she was competing for the future of the galaxy itself. And as Lyra stood there, knowing she had passed the first trial, She couldn't help but wonder if the Federation had underestimated her. The real battle was just beginning. The air was thick with anticipation as the second round of the competition began. The first few challenges had tested the contestants' intelligence and leadership, but now it was time for something different, something far more personal. The atmosphere inside the Galactic Federation arena was alive with energy, a strange mix of excitement and fear. The contestants were about to face something they hadn't expected, a test of alliances. Lyra stood in the center of the grand hall, her mind already working on the next step. She was a solitary person by nature, someone who had learned the value of trust the hard way. Her people, the Lothar, had been betrayed by false allies, left to fight wars they could not win. She didn't make alliances lightly, but she also knew that this was not just a beauty contest anymore. This was a battle for power, and in such a game, no one could stand alone. The contestants were all gathered together, standing in a circle, waiting for the challenge to be revealed. The screen flickered to life, and the familiar, emotionless voice of the Federation echoed across the arena. This round will test your ability to form alliances. Only through cooperation can you succeed. For a moment, Lyra's heart skipped. She was good at leading, but working with others, especially women who were as competitive and determined as she was a different challenge entirely. The rules were simple. They would all have to choose one partner, and together, they would have to solve a series of complex, collaborative tasks. Trust, teamwork, and the ability to navigate interpersonal conflict would be crucial. But there was one catch: the contestants weren't allowed to communicate openly. They had to pick their allies without knowing who was planning to choose whom. As the rules sunk in, Lyra's mind raced. She had seen the other contestants in action. Kaya, the beautiful princess from Ishtar, was graceful, but also a master of manipulation. Vera, the mysterious telepath from Deadliest, was always calm, always a step ahead. But how much of that was her own intellect, and how much was her ability to read others' thoughts? And then there was Zara, the warrior from Charybdis, whose strength was obvious, but whose emotions often got in the way of her decisions. Lyra knew that she had to choose carefully, but she also knew that no matter who she partnered with, she would have to tread carefully. The stakes were high and forming. The wrong alliance could ruin her chances. As the countdown began, the contestants were given a few moments to size each other up. Lyra's eyes scanned the room, trying to figure out who she could trust. She noticed Kaya, who was standing a little apart from the others, her face serene but calculating. Lyra considered approaching her. Kaya seemed like someone who could offer valuable insight, but was it just a facade? Was she truly a good person to ally with? Or was she just another player in the game, using her beauty to manipulate the others? Her gaze then shifted to Vera. The woman was standing in the shadows, her expression unreadable. Vera's telepathic abilities were well known, but Lyra had always been cautious of people who could read her thoughts. The ability to keep one's true intentions hidden was a weapon, and Lyra wasn't sure she wanted to expose herself to it. Then there was Zara, the warrior. Lyra had respect for her, but Zara's brute strength could be a double-edged sword. While she could fight her way through any obstacle, her anger sometimes clouded her judgment. Lyra could work with Zara, but could she trust her to keep her cool when the time came? The timer ticked down, and the contestants had no choice but to make a decision. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest as she finally made up her mind. She moved toward Zara, offering a silent nod. The warrior's eyes flicked toward her, and for a moment, there was a brief flash of hesitation. But then Zara stepped forward, her strong presence a testament to her resolve. Lyra knew it was a risk, but Zara was strong, there was no doubt about that. As the two women stood together, the Federation's voice once again filled the room. Your first task will be a test of survival. Together, you must navigate through the galaxy's most dangerous region, the Nebula of Despair. Known for its hostile creatures and deadly terrain, this nebula has claimed the lives of many who dared to enter. You must work together to find your way out. A murmur rippled through the room. The Nebula of Despair? It was a name spoken in hushed tones across the galaxy, a place where only the bravest and the most foolish ventured. It was an area filled with drifting, volatile energy, massive space creatures, and deadly anomalies that could tear apart even the most advanced starships. Navigating it would require more than just physical strength. It would require strategy, quick thinking, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. Lyra knew this was the Federation's way of testing her alliance with Zara. If they couldn't survive this, they would both be eliminated. The doors to the arena opened, and the contestants were led to their individual pods. Lyra and Zara stepped into the sleek, metallic capsule, and the door slid shut behind them. A soft hum filled the air as the pod lifted off, heading straight toward the heart of the nebula. As they sailed through the cold expanse of space, the tension between the two women was palpable. Lyra could feel the weight of their alliance pressing down on her. There were so many unknowns. Could Zara hold her temper? Could they work together under pressure? And most importantly, could they trust each other? The nebula came into view. It was as beautiful as it was terrifying, a swirling mass of bright colors and chaotic energy. The pod shook as it entered the nebula's edge, and Lyra's eyes darted to the control panel. It was covered in unfamiliar buttons and dials, but she had spent years learning to operate complex systems. She quickly assessed the situation and began taking control, her hands moving quickly to stabilize the pod. Zara looked at her, a mix of surprise and admiration in her eyes. "You're good," she muttered, her tone begrudging but honest. Lyra didn't respond. She had no time for flattery. Instead, she focused on the task at hand. With Zara's help, they navigated the treacherous space, avoiding massive creatures that passed by them and dodging deadly bursts of energy from the nebula. The journey wasn't easy. There were moments when Lyra thought they wouldn't make it, moments when the pod shuddered violently, but through it all, they worked together, each playing to their strengths. As they finally emerged from the nebula, both women were breathless, but alive. They had made it through, and in that moment, Lyra realized something. This contest, this challenge, wasn't just about beauty, intelligence, or strength. It was about resilience, about finding the strength to push forward, even when the odds were stacked against you. And for the first time, Lyra allowed herself a small smile. She and Zara might just have what it took to win this competition after all. The feeling of victory was fleeting, yet it lingered with a bittersweet taste. Lyra and Zara had emerged from the nebula of despair, their bond tested and solidified. But that brief moment of triumph faded as quickly as it had arrived. The Federation's arena was not a place for respite. It was a place for endless trials, a constant march toward a prize that seemed more like a dangerous burden than a coveted trophy. As Lyra stepped out of the pod, her pulse still racing from their close encounter with the deadly nebula, she could feel the eyes of the other contestants on her. There was a new level of tension in the air, as if the very atmosphere had thickened with the weight of unspoken thoughts and secret strategies. Some contestants congratulated them on surviving, but their smiles were strained, as if they knew that survival in this contest didn't just mean making it through dangerous tasks. It meant navigating a web of lies, manipulations, and unexpected twists. Lyra wiped the sweat from her brow, her mind already shifting from the survival mission to the next challenge. This wasn't over yet. The Federation had a habit of revealing the next task when least expected, always pushing the contestants to their limits. She glanced at Zara, who stood by her side, her broad frame still tense, but a silent understanding passing between them. Their alliance had survived the nebula, but this was only the beginning. They both knew it. The air in the arena was cooler now, almost unnaturally still. The once vibrant sounds of distant conversations faded into a hushed murmur as the Federation's official voice echoed through the chamber. The challenge was far from over, and the contestants were to gather in the center once more. The next task would test them not just physically or mentally, but emotionally. The announcement was simple, yet the weight of it crushed the room with its implications. Now, contestants, you will face a trial of loyalty. Your alliances will be tested. You will be asked to make a decision, one that could change the course of this competition. Choose wisely, for the consequences will be permanent. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. Loyalty? She had already been forced to trust Zara, but trust had always been a fragile thing for her. Back home on Lothar, she had learned that loyalty was earned, not given. But now, here, in this foreign arena of competition, everything was different. She had learned to rely on Zara's strength, but what if that reliance was a weakness? Could she trust her, or would the warrior betray her when the stakes were high enough? The voice continued, "You will each be presented with a choice. You may either continue to work together with your current alliance, or you may choose to betray your partner and join forces with someone else. Only one path will lead to victory. Choose carefully. For once the decision is made, it is final." The silence in the room was deafening. Lyra felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. This wasn't just about winning anymore, it was about survival, about understanding how far she was willing to go. What was the cost of betrayal? Would she be able to take the risk of turning on Zara, or would it cost her everything? Zara stood beside her, her arms crossed, but the tension in her body was palpable. Lyra could sense the warrior's unease, the same uncertainty that gnawed at her own chest. There was a bond between them now, forged through the heat of battle, but that bond was fragile. What would happen if one of them made the wrong choice? What if, in a moment of desperation, Zara decided that betraying Lyra was the only way to win? The thought was chilling, but Lyra couldn't allow herself to be consumed by doubt. She had to think clearly, as she always did. She knew that the stakes were higher than ever. The Federation was playing a game that was designed to tear them all apart, to force them into making decisions that would reveal who they really were beneath the surface. Lyra glanced around the room at the other contestants. Some were already looking for new alliances, while others stood frozen, unable to make a decision. Kaya, the princess from Ishtar, was calm as ever, her face a mask of indifference. She had a subtle smile, but Lyra knew it wasn't one of comfort, it was a smile of calculation. Kaya was always thinking 2 steps ahead, always planning for her next move. Lyra had learned to be wary of that smile. Then there was Vera, the telepath from Deadliest. Always a mystery, Lyra had never trusted Vera, not fully. The woman's ability to read minds was a dangerous power, one that could be used against her. The thought of being manipulated by someone like Vera made Lyra uneasy, but she had to admit, Vera had a certain strength. She played the game with a cold, detached precision that Lyra both admired and feared. The clock on the wall began to tick down, each second dragging on like an eternity. The contestants were given a moment to make their choice. As the final seconds approached, Lyra's gaze returned to Zara. The warrior's expression had softened, slightly, as if she were waiting for Lyra to make the first move. The bond between them was real. They had made it through the nebula of despair together, and they had survived the test of loyalty once before. Could she trust that bond to survive this test too? Lyra closed her eyes for a brief moment, taking a deep breath. She had been through too much to let fear dictate her decisions. Her loyalty had always been to her people, to the fight for justice, and she had come too far to let anyone, even Zara, stand in the way of her goal. But the warrior had proven herself, and Lyra wasn't a fool. She wouldn't turn on someone who had earned her respect. The timer finally ran out. The decision had to be made. Lyra took one last look at Zara, then turned to the rest of the contestants. She made her choice. It wasn't the easy choice, but it was the only one she could live with. There was no turning back now. The Federation's voice spoke again, its tone dark and final. "You have made your choice. Now, face the consequences." As the consequences began to unfold, Lyra realized that this competition wasn't just about beauty or strength, it was about the choices you made in the darkest moments. And as the weight of that realization settled in, she couldn't help but wonder if she had made the right choice, or if this would be the beginning of her downfall. The tension in the air had become almost suffocating, and Lyra could feel the weight of the decision pressing heavily on her chest. She had chosen. She had made her choice with resolve, yet the uncertainty lingered like a dark shadow. The Federation had promised consequences, and Lyra knew better than to think there would be no price to pay for the choices they had just made. The arena, usually alive with the hum of spectators and the murmur of competition, felt eerily silent. Now, the other contestants stood frozen in place, their faces a mix of fear, confusion, and determination. The Federation's announcement hung in the air, almost like a warning. It was clear that this was not just another game. It wasn't about beauty, strength, or intelligence anymore. It was about loyalty, trust, and betrayal. But more than that, it was about survival. As the crowd's attention shifted back to the stage, Lyra could feel her heartbeat quicken. The arena was changing. The once gleaming metallic walls now seemed to shift, their smooth surfaces rippling as though reality itself was bending under the weight of the Federation's rules. The lights dimmed, and a low, mechanical hum filled the space. The voice of the Federation spoke again, its cold, unfeeling tone echoing through the chamber. "Contestants, your choices have been made. Now, face your fate." The words were chilling. There was no warmth, no comfort in them, just an undeniable sense of finality. It was as if the universe itself had tilted, and now they were all suspended in the aftermath of decisions that could never be undone. Lyra glanced around, her gaze briefly meeting Zara's. The warrior's face was unreadable, but Lyra could see the muscles in her jaw tightening. They had made it through together, but was this decision truly the right one? Was it the one that would carry them forward? Or was it the one that would destroy everything they had fought for? Then the arena doors swung open with a loud clang, revealing the next phase of the trial. A cold, metallic walkway stretched out before them, leading to an imposing platform. At the far end of the platform stood a massive, shimmering orb, the Federation's final test. The orb pulsed with energy, glowing with a strange, otherworldly light. It looked almost alive, shifting and swirling, as if it were somehow aware of what was about to transpire. "Each of you will now face the final challenge," the Federation's voice rang out. "To continue forward, you must enter the orb of reflection. What you see inside will reveal not only your deepest desires, but your greatest fears. You will be forced to confront the truth about yourselves, truths you may not want to face. The choice is yours: enter the orb and emerge victorious, or refuse and be eliminated. But know this, there will be no second chances." The words echoed in the air, leaving a cold silence in their wake. Lyra's breath caught in her throat as she looked at the orb. There was something unnerving about it, something that told her this was more than just another challenge. This was personal. The Federation wasn't just testing their physical abilities or their wit anymore. They were testing their very souls. Lyra hesitated. She had seen much in her life: wars, betrayals, loss. She had confronted enemies on the battlefield, had fought for the survival of her people, and yet, something about the orb of reflection filled her with an unfamiliar dread. What would she see inside? What would the orb reveal about her? Her deepest desires, her fears? For a moment, she considered refusing. She had already proven herself in the previous challenges. She had survived the nebula, outsmarted the other contestants in the mind game, and formed an alliance that had carried her through the harshest tests. But refusing would only confirm the doubts she had been trying to suppress. She couldn't back down. Not now. She took a step forward, the cold metal of the walkway beneath her feet sounding louder than usual in the silence. Zara followed closely behind, her footsteps heavy but determined. The two women reached the orb, and as they did, a ripple of energy surged through the air, momentarily distorting their surroundings. Lyra's stomach tightened. The orb shimmered before them, its surface pulsing with light. The Federation's voice returned, its tone ominously calm. "You may now enter. Only by confronting what lies within will you prove your worth." Lyra took a deep breath and stepped forward, her hand hovering over the surface of the orb. As her fingers brushed against it, a jolt of energy surged through her, and her surroundings vanished in an instant. The world around her shifted, replaced by a vast, swirling expanse of light and shadow. The orb's surface had dissolved into pure energy, and Lyra found herself standing alone in an endless void. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to orient herself. What was this place? It felt like a dream, yet it was too vivid, too real. Suddenly, images began to form in front of her. They were flashes, snippets of her life, her past, and her fears. First, she saw the face of her father, standing tall and proud, a symbol of strength. But then the image warped. She saw him falling in battle, her people's lives hanging in the balance, and in the distance, the face of the Federation, cold, impersonal, indifferent to the suffering they caused. The next image came so quickly, it almost knocked her breath out. Her people, her warriors, betrayed by a close ally. It was the moment she had never allowed herself to truly face, the moment that had shaped everything she had done since. Her closest friend, a leader of their army, had turned against them. The trust she had given freely had been shattered in an instant, and her people had paid the price. The orb's light flared brighter, and Lyra was forced to watch it all again. But this time, she saw it from a different perspective. She saw herself, cold, calculating, a woman who had learned to trust no one. She had built walls around herself, never allowing anyone to get too close, always keeping others at arm's length. Was this who she had become? Was she so consumed by the need to protect her people that she had lost sight of the very thing that made her human? Her chest tightened, and for a brief moment, she thought she might collapse. But then, as quickly as the images had appeared, they vanished. The orb fell silent. Lyra stood there, panting, her mind racing. The orb had shown her more than she had expected. It had forced her to confront the truth about herself, her fears, her vulnerabilities, and the walls she had built to keep herself safe. But in that moment, something inside her shifted. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was more than her past, more than the weight of her choices. The Federation wanted to break her, to strip her down to her core, but the orb had done something else. It had shown her the strength she had yet to fully embrace. When the light faded, Lyra stepped back from the orb, her heart still racing, but her resolve stronger than ever. She had faced her darkest fears and had come out on the other side. The true test was just beginning. The air in the arena had grown heavy, filled with the kind of anticipation that only a final moment could bring. Lyra stood still, her breath shallow and her mind still processing the vision the orb had shown her. She had confronted her deepest fears, her past mistakes, and the walls she had built around her heart. The visions had been brutal, but they had also given her something she hadn't expected: clarity. Clarity about who she was, what she was fighting for, and why she couldn't back down now. The Federation's challenges were designed to break contestants, to force them to confront their weaknesses, to push them to the point where their true selves were revealed. But Lyra wasn't broken. She was stronger than ever. The orb had done what no one else could, made her face the woman she had become, the choices she had made, and the cost of her ambition. She now knew that it wasn't just about winning. It was about becoming something more than the sum of her fears and her past. As the light from the orb faded, the arena shifted once again. The harsh, metallic environment softened, and the walls seemed to blur, becoming distant, almost dreamlike. The Federation's voice echoed once more, cold and calculated, as it had been throughout the competition. Now, contestants, it began. You have seen the truth within yourselves. The final decision is yours. The ultimate test awaits. There will be no more alliances, no more teams. You will stand alone, and only one will emerge victorious. The announcement felt like a punch to the gut. Alone. The words reverberated in Lyra's mind, carrying a sense of finality that was hard to ignore. She had formed alliances, first with Zara, then with the others, but now it was clear no one could be trusted. The Federation had played its cards well. Every challenge had been designed to make them rely on each other, to build connections that would ultimately be shattered when it mattered most. Lyra glanced around the arena, her gaze catching the eyes of the other contestants. There was Kaya, the princess who always wore that serene, almost smug smile. There was Vera, her expression unreadable, hiding her thoughts with that eerie calm. And Zara, her ally, her partner, standing just a few paces away, looking as conflicted as Lyra felt. Everything had led to this moment. No more teamwork, no more partnerships. The Federation had made it clear it was time to fight for their own survival, to prove that they were capable of standing alone. The ultimate prize was within reach, but it came with a cost. Could Lyra overcome the isolation? Could she face the final test without letting the weight of her choices drag her down? The arena's atmosphere shifted again, and a new challenge appeared before them. A massive, floating platform suspended high above a dark chasm. At first glance, it seemed almost too simple, a test of balance, of physical ability. Maybe, but Lyra knew better. The Federation never played fair. She wasn't here to balance on a narrow beam. She was here to confront something deeper. Contestants, the Federation's voice boomed. You will now compete in the final battle. This arena will test not just your strength, but your will to win. Each of you will face a trial of courage. Only the strongest will survive. You will enter the arena below, and the obstacles you face will be tailored to your deepest fears. Only those who can overcome the darkness inside themselves will emerge victorious. The words hit Lyra like a wave, and for the first time since this entire ordeal began, she felt a true sense of dread. This wasn't just another test, this was personal. The Federation wasn't interested in just her physical abilities or her intellect anymore. They wanted to know how far she would go to secure victory. They wanted to see what she would sacrifice to prove that she deserved to win. The arena below was her battleground, but it wasn't just filled with obstacles. It was filled with herself, her doubts, her guilt, her fears. Step forward. The Federation's voice called. One by one, the contestants were guided to a platform at the edge of the chasm. Lyra stepped up, her feet feeling unsteady, her body tense. This was the moment she had been dreading, the culmination of everything she had been through, the final test. As she descended into the arena below, the world around her seemed to warp. The air grew thick and heavy, and the once sleek, futuristic walls of the arena turned into jagged, broken structures darkened by shadow. A cold wind whipped around her, carrying with it whispers of her past, echoes of the battles she had fought, the people she had lost, the betrayals that had shaped her into who she was now. It was as if the very arena was reaching into her soul, pulling out her darkest memories, forcing her to confront them head-on. At the center of the arena, a figure emerged from the shadows, her father, the leader of her people, standing tall and proud, just as she remembered him. But this time, there was something different about him. His eyes were empty, cold, his face twisted into an expression of disappointment. You failed. His voice echoed, deep and resounding. You failed them, Lyra. You failed your people. All the strength, all the power you have is meaningless. You can't protect them. You can't protect anyone. Lyra's heart clenched, but she didn't look away. She had faced these words before, this doubt, this guilt. She had carried it with her every day since that fateful moment when she had been forced to watch the destruction of her world, knowing she could do nothing to stop it. But this time, she wouldn't let it break her. The Federation wanted her to crumble, to fall into despair, to give into the darkness. They wanted to see if she would let her fear consume her. But Lyra knew something they didn't. She knew that strength wasn't just about overcoming the world around you. It was about overcoming the darkness within yourself. I didn't fail, she whispered, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. I'm not afraid anymore. With those words, the figure of her father vanished, and the arena shifted once again. The shadows receded, and the oppressive air lifted. Lyra stood alone in the center, the echoes of her past fading into nothingness. She had faced her demons and she had won, but the battle wasn't over. The Federation's trials had tested her, pushed her to her limits, and shown her every crack in her armor. But they hadn't broken her. Now, as she emerged from the arena, her heart pounding with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph, Lyra knew that the final decision was not just about surviving the trials. It was about who she had become in the process, and no matter what happened next, she was ready.